Welcome back to season 2 of our Behind the Mask podcast. Glad to have everybody back with us. We have a long list of questions that have come in over the internet from our fans out there all over the world, I should say. And without further ado, I want to introduce John Gallante, president and founder of Tri-State Elite Umpires Association, who's going to pretend to be the Wizard of Oz tonight by answering all these questions.
Rich, it's good to have you back on the show. We filmed episode 1 without you. It wasn't the same.
I appreciate that. John, I'm glad to be back. As you know, I love doing the show with you. I love working with you. I love being with you. Question number 1 is coming from a gentleman named Jack. I don't know where he's from, but here we go. He says, and I'm going to quote word for word, he appreciates the hell out of the videos. He says, I studied them repeatedly and applied them to my work this past year, and he was voted Umpire of the Year for his travel organization in 2019, and it has helped him to get a calling to do high school games. A couple of things he never thought he would be doing at the age of 20, when he started umpiring Little League at the tender age of 14. Your influence has helped me step up my game big time. What do you have to say to Jack?
Well,
Jack
first
W.
I want to say that the questions have really been more mild to start this year than last. But, I'm really glad that the videos helped, and it sounds like this guy has a tremendous passion for umpiring. So if he's only 20 years old, I wish him all the best. We need more people involved in umpiring at his age with that kind of passion. So glad it helped, and appreciate you watching and submitting more of a statement. That wasn't quite a question, but I appreciate it regardless.
He sounds like a good fan and somebody who really appreciates the podcast. That's nice.
Yeah.
Question number 2, John. What is your advice to a young umpire trying to move up through the college ranks? He says he works for Division III JUCO right now as a 20-year-old, and he has attended as many clinics and camps in his area as possible. He reads all the books and he watches film on himself and others to learn, in addition to forming connections with whoever he might be working with to get any opportunity. Question at the end is there something he might be missing, or does it just take time? His name is John Miller.
Well, I mean, the answer is both. There could be something that he's missing. I don't know. I've never seen film on his umpiring ability. I've never evaluated him, but also it does take time. A 20-year-old, unless you went to pro umpire school at 18 or 19 years old, is probably going to need some time to be seasoned at the Division III, the JUCO level, before getting to the Division I level. That's not exactly an easy place to get to. So I would say keep working, send some video to people you trust to evaluate you, but you also be approachable. I think that's a big part of this, being able to handle situations, ejections, dealing with coaches who may be upset with you. Being approachable are all going to be big parts of advancing to the higher levels of college baseball once you get into college baseball. So, 20 years old, you're still really young. I would wait and don't get discouraged. It is going to take some time, but also be open to any criticism or constructive criticism you receive from umpires or umpire instructors you trust.
John Miller, I just want to say, have faith and work hard, because John Gallante himself is only 29 years old and he's already doing colleges. So just keep that in mind. If you work hard, you study, you watch film, you watch really good umpires work, be like a sponge, soak it up. But if John Gallante can be an example to you, he's only a few years older, but he's already in college ranks. Question number 3 actually is coming in from a woman named Emma. And Emma wants to know, what do you do in your pregame and postgame with your partner?
Well, pregame is not as intricate as postgame, but pregame always begins, as you know, Rich, with a Dunkin' Donuts coffee. You do know that, right?
Yes.
Okay. After that, generally, we go over typical things that would take place in the game, cover rotations, no matter how many times we've worked together, whether it's a partner I'm familiar with or not. We'll talk about rotations, foul balls that hit a batter in the box, going out on fly balls in certain situations, check swings, what we're going to do if we have to go for help, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Maybe 10 or 12, 15 minutes of that before we go down to the field just to make sure we're on the same page. That's generally fairly scripted. It's the same for every game for the most part. Post game is generally more a give and take of what I thought that my umpire partner could improve, and I'll usually try to distinguish whether they're interested in feedback on their performance or not interested in feedback in their performance. If they're not interested in feedback about their performance, I won't give it. I mean, it really doesn't matter to me. But if I have a partner who is interested in getting better and wants to know what they can improve, I will spend as much time as we need to go through what they could have done better. And I'll also give them the positives of what they did well. But we don't really get any better by hearing what we did well. We get better by hearing what we could have done better and then some advice on fixing that. So, our post game could be as short or as long as my partner wants to make it. And if my partner has something for me that could be constructive, that would be great as well. So hopefully we can use the post game as a mutually beneficial time to help each other get better.
John, the next question is from a person named, I guess it's a gentleman, Damien. And his question is almost like a part A to the previous question. Because, John, I know that you've worked with some really outstanding umpires that you have learned a lot from. They're very experienced. They've worked some very high-level baseball. John Harrington happens to be one of your favorite people. A terrific umpire, very high-level umpire. But the question from Damien is, what is the best tip you have received from a mentor? A mentor being somebody like a John Harrington.
I've been fortunate to have many over the course of my career. And if I miss somebody, it's just forgetfulness, and it's not, I hope I don't offend anybody. But John Harrington has taught me a lot. Chris Losey, when I was a much younger umpire, fresh out of being certified for high school baseball. They all taught me a lot. Jerry Wilgus and even Kurt Wider, who started umpiring after I did, helps me tremendously in our give and take after games. But probably the best thing is just the advice to be approachable and be just a pleasant person to work with on a field for coaches. It's not saying that you have to kiss anybody's ass out there, but you need to be approachable and a facilitator of a good interaction on the field as long as everybody's acting appropriately. So I probably had a much more Gestapo-like approach to umpiring when I was 19 or 20 or 21 years old. Now I'm sort of mellowed, and I obviously won't let anything inappropriate happen, but I'm a little bit more laid back in terms of I don't take everything so personally, and I don't get defensive when things like that happen. So just being approachable is probably the best tip I've ever received among the many tips I have been fortunate to receive from many different quality umpires.
I know it's very important to kind of adopt a mentor no matter what you're doing. And I think back to when I graduated college and wound up getting a job right away on Wall Street. But the gentleman who hired me became my mentor and one of my best friends, and later an usher in my wedding. But the man practically wrote the book, and I just said, tell me whatever you can tell me. I'm going to soak it up. I'm going to adopt everything you say and worship every word. And there are people out there who know a lot more than all of us. If you could just make yourself available and receptive, keep your antenna up, you'll benefit in the long run. John, the next question is coming from a gentleman named Ron. His question is this. I wanted to say your videos are absolutely outstanding. I am a fast-pitch softball umpire in Maryland who will be taking over and assigning and training USSSA umpires in Central Maryland. He has about 160 guys and women under his wing. He said, your methods, meaning you, John, your methods are terrific, and I'm going to use them in future training. No question from me. It's just great working for you, or just great working I guess, watching you and watching the videos. I guess it's more of a compliment than a question. Uh, Ron, we appreciate the question. John Gallante, do you have anything you want to add to this?
No, I appreciate you watching, and taking over assigning that many people is a big deal. So take it seriously, and represent those umpires as you would want to be represented if you were just a rank and file umpire. So congratulations on the promotion to assigner, and keep it rolling. Thanks for watching, and glad the videos helped you.
The next question is coming from Jeff from New York. I don't know whether it's New York City, Long Island, or upstate New York, but Jeff, we appreciate your question. It's actually a statement with a question tagged on. He says, I saw a post on Twitter from the Western New York Umpires Association. So sounds like he's from up near the Buffalo, Rochester area, saying that you, quote, created a roadmap for umpires to use social media. He says, are you serious? Just when I thought you couldn't be any more arrogant, umpires didn't need you to show them how to use social media. I guess he's taking a shot at you and wondering why you're so hung up on social media. I, for one, know how effective social media has become for the Tri-State Elite Umpires Association. But why don't you go ahead and answer this, John, and I'll maybe tag on at the end of this one.
Yeah, I think he's a little confused because, I obviously am on social media quite a bit, which, I don't make any apologies about. I think it's a good way to connect with, frankly, everybody, umpires and coaches out there and administrators. I think overall it's been a net positive for our organization by quite a lot. But he's getting confused about something. The Western New York Umpires Association posted a tweet that was giving me credit for creating a roadmap for umpires to use social media. I didn't say that. The Western New York Umpires Association said that. And I thought it was very nice of them to say. I don't know how true it is. I may have improved or shined a light on how umpires or umpiring organizations use social media to connect with their umpires or connect with some training tips. But I've never made that statement. So I don't know how that quote can be attributed to me when I didn't say it, and then could be proof that I'm more arrogant than he had thought. So I think there's a whole bunch of problems there, but that's fine.
Just on your behalf, John, I don't see you as arrogant. I'm sorry that there are people out there that do. I know you personally and very well, and you're a gentleman in everything you do. You're very serious, and you're really, really good, and I compliment you everywhere. But social media, I'm not really a high-tech guy, but social media has been a very effective tool for our organization. It's helped us in a recruiting effort. It has helped us in our branding. It's helped us to really get the word out to the world, and it's really helped our growth. I think it's really fueled our growth. And for the most part, I think the people who keep track of John and the organization on Facebook are really very impressed with the end product. So everybody reacts differently. Anyway, question number 7. I've heard you say before that the breeding ground for new college umpires is not high school, it's travel baseball. Did I hear that correctly? That sounds insane.
Yeah, I understand completely how that could sound insane, but perhaps we can get in the future some college assigners on our podcast to discuss. But it's just been my experience with running an organization that has recently helped many umpires go from travel baseball or high school baseball into college baseball, that at least the way we run our organization to umpire travel baseball, it is more conducive to impressing a college evaluator at a tryout than the teachings of a high school umpiring organization. The high school style of umpiring does not translate very well to college baseball. Travel baseball with a focus on preparing umpires for NCAA, to me, is the new breeding ground for where college organizations will get most of their umpires from. And I think if some people might be afraid to say that out loud, and maybe I will get in trouble for saying that with some people, but I'm fine with that. To me, just on an average, travel umpires in general, the good travel umpires are better prepared to enter college baseball than high school umpires. And that's just the way I see it. And that's been true for our organization. And I think it'll be continue to be true as we move forward into the future, as more and more, or as more of a higher percentage of assignments are travel ball in nature of some sort. I just think that is the new place to go look for some college umpires rather than your local high school baseball field.
John, question, actually, item number 8 is not really a question, but it's a very nice compliment, which I would like to read. Coming from a gentleman named Jeff, no location. And Jeff says, I just wanted to tell you that your ejection video on YouTube is the best material I have ever seen on the subject. Thanks very much for posting it. Signed, Jeff.
That's very nice. The issue, I mean, I guess is there's probably not very many ejection videos on YouTube that deal with how the umpire should handle different things. I mean, there's probably a lot of MLB, like Tony La Russa or, old-time managers screaming their head off at major league umpires, but there's nothing that helps the rank and file common umpire who's out there working high school or travel baseball games on how to properly deal with difficult situations. So I'm really proud of that video and all the views it's had. We're at 300,000 now, but maybe it wouldn't be the best if there was more content out there, but it's just it's an area of umpiring that is not commonly discussed from instructors. And I think that should probably change. But thank you.
John, I'm sorry. Coincidentally, you mentioned in your answer St. Louis. And coincidentally, this question comes from a gentleman named Robert from St. Louis. Robert's question is, what is the big red flag or the worst trait an umpire can have that is coming to work for you?
Probably some form of arrogance or difficult to deal with, or a chip on their shoulder, any variation of being a difficult person to interact with is going to be very difficult for me to help you. And that doesn't have anything to do with umpiring per se. That's just being a good person. If you're a good person and easy to get along with, no matter your skill level as an umpire, I can help you navigate where you should be, whether that's 8U, 10U, 12U, or perfect game finals. You fall somewhere in that mix if you are approachable, polite, a nice person. I really have very little tolerance for umpires who are arrogant or come with a chip on their shoulder. Somebody once told me that just because you put on a navy blue umpiring shirt doesn't improve your vision. And if you think about that, there's a lot of umpires out there that think because they're in an umpire uniform, they have not made a mistake since they've started umpiring. And I just think that's the wrong way to go about it. And those are the biggest red flags for me. Any variation of a difficult person to deal with, from assigner to umpire or umpire to coach.
Good question, good answer. Oh boy. Question item number 10 is not a question, but I'm wondering who sent this in because it's actually a compliment for me. Maybe it was my daughter or a friend, but anyway, it looks like it's legit. Believe it or not, the man, his name is Brady from Pennsylvania. I'm not sure what city.
It's a big state.
But, pardon me?
It's a big state. He could be from anywhere.
Could be from Philadelphia. Could be from Erie, Pennsylvania. I don't know. But anyway, he said, I'm going to read this word for word. I can't believe it. He says, thank God Rich is back. This podcast was unwatchable without him. He goes on to say that he fell asleep during the last episode. I'd like to track this guy down, or maybe if you can make contact with him, I would like to hire him to be my agent and to try to negotiate with you for a raise
Yeah, we'll double your salary, but I'm glad you're back too. But that was pretty harsh, unwatchable without you, and he fell asleep. Um, you know, I don't know, a little harsh, but I'm glad to see you're getting your time in the spotlight.
Well, I want to do this man a favor. If he gets in touch with us through the way he sent this question in, I will send him back an autograph photo. I have a nice picture of you and John, a picture of you and I together. It was taken at a training session. I will make a copy and autograph it to Brady and provide your mailing address, and I'll be happy to thank you with an autograph photo. And I appreciate that.
That is a generous offer, Rich.
I appreciate that. That's very nice. I think I'm going to frame that question. Statement.
Outstanding.
All right. Anyway, going on to the next item. John, describe in some detail what you've been doing during this period without baseball. I'm glad somebody asked that question because that was running through my own mind. I know how hard you work, John. You're a 24/7 guy, and as an umpire who happens to notice that there are assignments coming out at 2, 3, or 4 o'clock in the morning, we all know that you work around the clock.
Yeah, it's been quite a change, especially when this time of the year is generally something I prepare myself to just keep working and be pretty busy, round the clock, like you said, with all the games and schedules and changes. But it's been quite a change of pace with all the downtime. I've hung out with my girlfriend Kate a lot, learned a lot about her that I didn't know from sitting around the house so often. Some video games, some walks around the block, a lot of food. I'm sure everybody's eating more than they should. But unfortunately, there's not a ton of work to do on the umpiring front. We don't know when games are going to begin. We don't know when we're going to get the green light from government officials to get back out there. We don't know what tournament schedules are going to look like. We just don't know. So I'm trying to keep all of our umpires up to date and send out any relevant information to those guys that I have. We tried to, get the podcast going again, which fortunately we have time to do now. And interact with the umpiring community on social media, but generally I'm sort of like a fish out of water right now. I really don't know what to do. It's been difficult, but fortunately I'm healthy, my family's healthy, and that's the important stuff. I could use a haircut too, but
you can't go to the barbershop, they're closed.
That's true. Thank you for breaking that news.
But I was personally interested. I mean, we've spoken here and there on and off. And, I, for one, in case you wanted to reverse the question, I, for one, have been spending a lot of time trying to declutter my office and, trying to increase my inventory of sports trivia questions. I hope one of these days I'll get a chance to get back on the circuit. So I'm just trying to take advantage of this downtime. But, John, what about how are you dealing with the fact that there have been so many assignments that were originally issued that are now, I mean, almost every email I got has been a cancellation of one game or another.
Yeah, I mean, it's been difficult to handle it like emotionally, I guess, because it's not like everything is canceled. It's not like if they're going to play, there's no doubt anymore. There's not going to be any games played in May. We don't know if there's going to be any games played in June, but I'm not concerned about the work that I put in to assign the games. It's just more of it's kind of depressing to see what you'd be doing on this day had this pandemic not broken out. I try not to think about that. I try not to think about where I would be umpiring college baseball on a particular day or what kind of perfect game tournament would have been happening on the weekend. It's just been, for somebody who eats, sleeps, and breathes this stuff, it's been difficult to just sit around without baseball for, over a month now while we have pretty solid weather outside and where we'd normally be playing baseball. So, I'm sure all the umpires out there are in the same boat, struggling and going crazy inside, and their wives and girlfriends want to kill them. But, we got to do what we have to do and stay safe.
Yeah, it's very frustrating. I mean, we've had a lot of very nice, what I would call great baseball days, sunny, nice and cool. It's very frustrating. I mean, we all know that, a lot of us have attended, I should say, about 20 classes and training sessions, getting to the point of the beginning of the season, only to find out that the season we put the brakes on, and now we're not even out there. We all have nice, clean uniforms and have never been put on, and it's very frustrating. And I know how frustrating it must be for you to spend as much time as you did inputting all of those assignments and games onto your computer and your scheduling and sending out the assignments and schedules only to, cancel them out. I mean, I, for one, I get really very frustrated when I spend a lot of time doing something and then I have to retrace, cancel it, and it feels like it's all a waste of time. So
Yeah,
it's very hard to.
I feel for a lot of. I try to think about who has it worse off than me, and there's plenty of people out there with it worse off than me. I think of the high school seniors who won't be able to get a chance to play baseball possibly this year. We have about a dozen guys who just got accepted into college baseball for their first season. That had their first college baseball season cut so short where some didn't umpire at all. Some only umpired 1 or 2 games, and they were excited to finally get into NCAA baseball. It's difficult for everybody, so it's important to remember that everybody's suffering one way or another, and I just hope everybody stays safe the best they can, and hopefully we're back in hopefully mid-June. Any point this summer I'll be happy with.
I'm with you, brother. And I just want to extend my thoughts and prayers to everybody out there who's currently in ill health, and especially my condolences go out to all the families around the country that have lost loved ones. It's a very sad time, and missing games is a very minor thing to be thinking about now, but they're bigger fish to fry, and I hope that I hope we just go back to normal times. Everybody's healthy and happy.
Yep.
Question number 12. Check swings seem to be a problem, even with some of your veteran umpires. Balks also seem to be an issue. John, if you can, go into some specific detail about how you train even the veteran umpires to be more experienced in recognizing these critical situations like check swings and balks.
Yeah, well, it's important to isolate these issues as their own training sessions. They need their own specific times to discuss, show, and practice calling them by veteran and new umpires alike. So we try to create the most realistic situation we can, which is sometimes more realistic than others. But so guys see it over and over and over again. If you come to one of our training sessions and you see 50 balks in real time because we simulated them, you're going to be that much more prepared than an umpire who sat at home and gets thrown into a game and potentially has a balk happen right in front of him that he's not prepared to make a call on. So we try to give all of the umpires, whether they're veteran or rookie umpires, all of the common balks you'll see. Show it to them. Teach them how to call it. Teach them how to explain it to a coach once they do call it, and how to award the bases afterwards. And we have some tips and strategies that we discuss in our advanced training sessions that help the administration of these balks and help keep the game flowing. And the same thing with check swings. I don't think a lot of umpires are aware of what a check swing is. How do you define what's a check swing, and how do you define what a swing is, and perhaps we'll cover that in another episode. But I would stress to these umpiring organizations, you have to isolate these situations and work on them, and have somebody in charge of these sessions that is equipped to teach and help the umpires along that attend these sessions. So it's multifaceted. It takes time, it takes dedication, it takes someone who's willing to teach it, and umpires who are willing to be taught. So we've got sort of the perfect storm here. It's pretty easy to teach guys who want to learn. They actively want to learn.
It's very. I mean, everything on a baseball field for an umpire is important, but particularly when you get into a situation where the outcome of a game could depend on a balk, and if you don't recognize it one way or the other, it's really embarrassing. I was part of a game, a playoff game I was on the bases, my partner was on the plate, and the pitcher balked. My partner and I saw it. We called it. The winning run came in from third, and the other team, the team that lost, said, "How the heck could you call? How could you end the game on a balk?" Well, we saw it. That's part of the game. We had to do it. We had to do our job. But the umpire, I mean, the coach for the other team that lost, he went nuts, went berserk. But we saw it. There were other people who saw it. They complimented us on seeing it. And, it could have been a tragedy if we called it and really didn't see it. Thought we saw it, but it really didn't happen.
Right.
So,
Yeah, it's important to be, you got to be, vigilant and aware while you're on the field of potential balks, and just keep your focus. I think that's a big part, and sometimes challenging for guys to keep their focus for every out and every inning of a 7 or 9 inning game. But you got to stay involved and stay active mentally in the game.
and John, I know, having attended many of your training sessions, that you and Jerry and Kurt are really, really great at helping everybody identify a check swing and a balk, because it's almost like when that happens, your life is on the line, and it's really embarrassing if you miss it.
Yeah, those are moments, check swings and balks and obstruction and interference. Those are the periods of time where you earn your paycheck. The 5% of the game where they really are depending on you to make a call and your expertise is needed. And if you let one of those pass by, you really damage your credibility as an umpire. And God forbid it happens during like a college tryout or an evaluation of some kind. That's a chance to shine and show what kind of umpire you are.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, a lot of the games, particularly for me when I'm out there on the bases, a lot of the calls are very obvious and rather routine. And but when something like that, a balk, you're in a tense situation, tie score, playoff game, championship game on the line, and you got a runner at third. I mean, bases loaded, and the pitcher balks, and if you see it or don't see it, you have a problem.
100%.
So it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter that you had 99 out of 100 calls correct all day. That call that you missed at the end is a problem.
I agree.
John, our last question number 13. Months were spent recruiting new cadet umpires. You and I both know that, how much time we spent trying to get people to come to the recruiting to join the cadet program. We wound up finding cadets in all different places. But we had to suspend the training after only having completed 6 weeks out of an 8-week program. So the question remains, how do you evaluate those cadets when we are allowed to resume training? And before you answer that question, John, I want to send out my condolences to the family of the gentleman who happened to pass away. He contracted the COVID-19 disease and passed away. One of our cadets, a really nice guy who was really psyched to go through the training program, and he was looking forward to completing the program successfully and getting on the field. So if for some reason his friends or family are watching this video, I want to, on behalf of myself and you and the organization, I want to send our sincere condolences to the family of the umpire who just passed away. We just found out about him today.
Yeah, that was very sad news. Our cadet umpire had played for some of the men's leagues that we service, Joe Becerra, and we're very, very sad to hear of his passing from this tragic situation that's going on. So, our best to his family, and it's just very difficult for everybody. But as far as the cadet class goes, it's an interesting topic because I've seen, as a high school assigner now, I've seen the ways that other high school organizations are dealing with their cadets. Many of these organizations are postponing their cadet classes till next year. So if you were a cadet this year who went through half of the class and this pandemic broke out, you will not be able to umpire until 2021. which to me is the exact wrong way to deal with the situation. So as soon as we get the green light to get back out there on a field, thankfully the weather is nice now. We will get our cadet umpires directly back on a field as soon as we can. We'll finish the last 2 or 3 weeks of our training. We'll get them in evaluation scrimmage, and my guess is they'll be ready to umpire maybe a month or two after we get the green light to get back outside and games are being played. So if one of our cadet umpires are listening, there's no need to worry about your time or your resources being wasted. We're going to get you on the field as soon as we get the green light. And I'm happy to do so because we just had the largest cadet class in the history of the Tri-State Elite Umpires Association, when there's a lot of other umpire organizations out there who are having difficulty even having a cadet class. So we're really proud of the size of our cadet class, and we'll have them out on the field as soon as possible.
I might add, John, that, and I want to ask you one more question having to do with the recruiting, but this was the first year that we had a woman in our cadet class.
Yes.
She and her father are cadets in the program. I think they want to concentrate on doing softball, but it was very nice to see a young woman who is going to, she was doing very well in the class too. John, if we got any more time left, I just was wondering if you could describe how we go about recruiting the new umpires that we get who go into the cadet class. I mean, keep in mind, there are different sources, Facebook, face-to-face with people, blah, blah, blah.
Well, it's a complicated process because there has been an umpire shortage in this country, having to deal with, people willing to go out there and take the abuse of parents and coaches. But I made the decision to assign you as the umpire recruitment coordinator. So you've taken the ball on that and got a few cadets registered just by word of mouth. We use a lot of targeted advertising on Facebook and social media. And thankfully, our podcast and our ejection video has really brought people to us more than they ever have in the past. So it hasn't been as hands-on and difficult to bring in new umpires as it has been since the popularity of our podcast last year, the ejection video, the perfect game tryout we held in Bridgewater. All of those things created sort of a lot of buzz, made us more popular as an organization, and then in turn brought people who were interested in becoming umpires out of the woodwork to find us. So that's been a pleasant surprise, and whatever it is, I hope it continues, because we had 18 cadet umpires this year in 2020, which is more than double what a normal cadet program would look like for us, and probably more than that compared to other organizations in the area.
Yeah, we had some, even though we only got as far as 6 weeks, you could tell that there was some people in the class who were really doing very well, and they're probably not far from being ready to go out on the field. Let me just throw out a couple of ideas because, as you mentioned, I was in charge of umpire recruiting, and I went about it in various ways. I spent a lot of time when I was not doing games, going to games and tournaments, and just basically mingling around, networking, talking to people. I found that there are a lot of parents who come to games, and it almost looks like I try to figure out which parents are there who are watching the kids who might be aging out of that level. And I introduce myself to them and, just ask them in a friendly way if they ever give any thought to wanting to become an umpire. And I wound up meeting a lot of people who subsequently expressed interest, and we signed them up. There are also some, as a former Army officer, I'm always interested in talking to people who are in the service. And we wound up recruiting a couple of people who are retired from the military. They always make good umpires because of the fact that they have this inherent discipline, and they, they're really very coachable. They subscribe to the teamwork code right away. We also had an interesting recruit, a cadet, a friend of mine actually, who happened to be a Cherry Hill police officer, who just recently retired, and I knew he was a former ball player, and I approached him about the possibility of becoming an umpire, and he agreed. He came to the class. He's doing very well. Actually, he dressed up with his new umpiring outfit when he came to the class. You still there, John?
I am here.
Okay, because I thought my phone cut out. But anyway, how are we doing on time?
We don't have any more questions, do we?
No, I think we covered everything. And I hope we were, I hope we answered the questions that were posed to us that came in from far and near. And again, a shout out to that fella Brady from Pennsylvania, who I guess is going to be the president of the Rich Glazer fan club. If he gets his address to us, I'll send him a picture, and I'll autograph it.
Perfect. I want to thank everybody for the influx in questions that have been submitted. In the format we continued from the end of last season. If you have anything you'd like us to answer for you, feel free to send those in through any of our social media outlets or my email address, which can be found on tseumpires.com. It's good to have Rich back in the saddle, and we will be back next week for our next episode. Thanks for watching.
Thank you.